when the Taliban was trying to largely convince the world that they were a legitimate government, they were talking about how they intended to protect human rights. And not an organization historically known for such things, but I mean, who knows? People and organizations can evolve. Curious your thoughts on whether or not they've kept that promise.
Yeah. No. And nor should anybody who has a pulse and any level of common sense have expected them to. But again, it kind of shows the eagerness and the rabid desire that the administration had in getting out there, that they were willing to throw that line out there. Well, look, they've given us some guarantees, right? And one of them was this notion of human rights, women's rights, education, right? And none of that's held. It's not in their DNA. Look, you're right. People can change. People can evolve. But, call me cynical. I've been around long enough and seen enough crap to think that sometimes people don't change. And sometimes you have to take them at their word. So, yeah, I think I guess you could argue. I was about to say something, kind of, I don't know, maybe it's not right to say it, but I didn't really give a crap in Afghanistan whether we built another road or improved the literacy rate by 2 or 3 or 4%. Right? What I was concerned about was national security for the U.S., and that's how we should address any overseas problem. Is it in the U.S. national security interests? We have to understand what those are then, right? To be engaged in a meaningful way in whatever part of the world or whatever crisis or global conflict we're talking about. And, we do tactical operations really, really well. You are much better versed in all of that than I would ever be. But, nation building, that's a different animal. And you could argue we felt bad for abandoning Afghanistan after the Soviets walked over the Friendship Bridge and closed their door. And so I think there were a lot of neocons who thought, well, if we just stayed, we wouldn't have had 9/11. And the reality is, no, if we just stayed, we would have had, 20 years of shit leading up to 9/11, right? And it still would have happened. But that makes me like some cynical asshole. So I guess whatever.
I mean, I tell people that the U.S. military is very good at breaking shit. We're not good at putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. I think that's, but also I don't know if that's necessarily even the role of the military. I think that's where this blend of NGO organizations and the U.S. military, like there has to be both. The U.S. military is not designed to build, from my understanding of the doctrine, which, let me just tell everybody out there, is incomplete. I understand my job well. I don't understand the doctrine of all the military, but yeah, it didn't surprise me, and I actually fall into the same category as you. The roads, the infrastructure, the literacy rate. I think all of those things are important, but you have to put them on. You have to put them on a timeline, and you have to invest as a country in such a long period of time to reap the benefits of sowing those particular seeds. And I think one of maybe the bigger mistakes that we made as a country was the commitment shortly after 9/11. I mean, we came in there like a hammer, and a relatively precise hammer. I don't believe that warfare can truly be that precise, but I mean, we kicked the shit out of the people that were directly involved, and they were kind of on the run. And I think one of the biggest strategic errors, which I was not consulted on by any way, shape, and form, nor should I have been.
Really?
Yeah. Was that the occupation. Again, we can break things. We're not great at building. And I don't necessarily think occupation in a war zone like that is what we're the best at. But now I worry, and I'm curious what your thoughts, now that we're essentially completely out of that country, do you think it could create an environment for, a breeding ground of organizations like Al-Qaeda or ISIS or ISIL or whatever the soup du jour name of the week is?
Yeah, I mean, I do. Short answer, just because it's, there's a certain level of chaos, and that's tends to be where those groups gravitate towards, right? Either to take advantage of it or to find safe haven and, hunker down and rebuild. So, yeah, I think that for Afghanistan, I think our problem is that when we went into Tora Bora, yeah, that was a solid action, right? And we should have at that point turned to the Taliban and said, if you allow this to happen again on your turf, we're going to come back and do this again, maybe twofold. And then if if you allow others to use your sandbox as a training ground, we'll come back and do it again. But the idea that we were going to, do this nation building, to prevent all future terrorism, I think it was a flawed strategy. I mean, it's easy to say now in hindsight, right? I mean, we can all look at that and go, yeah, okay, maybe. But we had enough past experience, and there's certainly enough case studies for Afghanistan to know that we were pushing a big rock up a hill and it probably wasn't going to ever get there. So I think it is a problem. We have to, and that's why the administration spent so much time during the withdrawal talking about their ability to look over the hill and see what's going to happen, and look there, and
you can see what's happening. It doesn't mean you know what the hell's going on.
Doesn't mean you know what the hell's going on. I mean, it's like with what we've seen with Hamas, right? I mean, again, here we go with another example, right? There was an element of the Israeli government, because they were in pretty big disarray, leading up to the Hamas attack, right? And there was an element of the government that had decided, well, look, what we have to do is we have to, even though the Arab world hasn't done shit for the Palestinian cause, right, for their own reasons. I mean, I don't know how many examples people need at this point, because they all imagine this is an Israeli problem. No, the Palestinian problem is an Arab world problem, first and foremost. And then, the Israelis are sitting smack dab in the middle of it. So, welcome to the party. But, I mean, Jordan just came out and said, we're not taking any refugees. Are you crazy?
Same as Egypt.
Egypt's closed Rafah crossing. They're not taking any.
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway, but the point being is, to your point, you can kind of watch what's happening. It doesn't give you the inside intel. You don't have anybody inside the tent. You don't have anybody even close. So it is hard. And that sort of intel collection from a distance, no matter how good your technical capabilities are, is a very heavy lift.